This was the third day of the bank training program for its new class of records, and today's course was titled Business Ethics, Responsibility and Accountability. The course title was wordy and overly convoluted. In short, very Ivy League. The expert business associate of Malcolm, who had set me up to sit in on a class, had explained more succinctly. It is one of those bullshit things they make you sit through. Pretty self-explanatory. Don't steal from the bank, don't fake profits or hide loss, play nice with everyone else in the sandbox, don't cut corners, because if you do, you'll end like Nick Leeson, rotting away for 6 years, some Singapore prison cell. You call that bullshit? I'd ask. It sounds like some pretty important lesson. It's crap, he'd responded. Because everyone knows that shit going on. Leeson didn't fuck up because he didn't know the consequence. He fucked up because he thought he could get away with it. He was gambling to make up for losses, and the loss kept getting bigger, so he kept on gambling. He knew he was in deep shit if he got caught, but that wasn't enough to stop him from doing it. Sitting in the air-conditioned boardroom, looking at the fresh young faces gathered around the tables that pressed business suits and carefully combed hair and leather briefcase brimming with training syllabi and course checklists, I wondered if Nick Leeson had ever been forced to attend one of these seminars. Head-bearing star Jay ever sat through a lecture on business ethics thinking it was all bullshit and that it would never apply to him. The door to the conference room opened, and another fresh young face in dark suit, white shirt, crimson tie, athletic build, thick blonde hair and fake tan that made him premature crease in his face stand out. He would done well in the page of Two Crew catalog on the deck of a luxurious sailboat. Even before I spoke, I sensed the upper-class New England air about him, a sense of entitlement written in the glassy depths of pale blue eyes, and in the way he used his fingers to punch around blonde locks of his forehead. He didn't look much older than anyone else in the boardroom, but when he took his position at the head of the table, unfolding a monocular folder against the black glass and leaned forward on both hands, there was a palpable shift of attention toward him, a straightening of shoulder and a stiffening of limbs. Michael Danville, he said by the way of introducing. I am associate professor at Harvard Business School, and I am here to tell you some stories about liars, cheaters, and fools. Hopefully you'll all listen up. It would be pretty disheartening if the next year I'd have to add one of your names to my lecture. With that, he began well-rehearsed monologue dedicated to the lowest moments of high-stake finance. He spoke without looking up from his manila folder. His cadence never changed. His tone never registered anything resembling either emotion or disapproval. It was lecture facts, and as he spoke, I realized the series was really bullshit. It wasn't the facts that mattered, it was the psychology behind him. Because the new class of experts needed to understand that it was the psychology that led people like Joe Jett and Nick Leeson down the path of disaster, psychology of high-staking gambler, the psychology of adrenaline junkie, the big-time player who chased their own thrill and their own high up their own goddamn cliff. By January of 1995, Daniel John on Nick Leeson, Barron star trader in Singapore, had accrued more than $1.3 billion in loss hidden in an error account he'd named 888 the 58 to try and recoup this loss before anyone found out about them. Leeson bet them on the Nikkei. The bet represented more money than the entire assets of Barron's bank. I look around the room and the eyes strained on Danville and his manila folder. The numbers were raising eyebrows, but the story behind them wasn't registering. Danville was missing the important knowns. He was a scholar of science, not psychology, certainly not a gambler. I knew next to nothing about international business, but I knew gambling. I had spent 3 months in Las Vegas researching my book on the MIT black team. I had an intimate knowledge of one of the most successful group of professionals at card counts in the world. I didn't know Nick Leeson, but it may be just I knew what made him tick. In card counted, there was a concept called the big player. The big player was the guy who played the big money, the guy who took the biggest risks, who went after the biggest payoff. He was the high roller, the whale, the one who took the signals from the other card counters and made use of those signals by putting large bets down on the table. Big players thrived off the thrill of placing those bets, the adrenaline high that came from risking large amounts of money on the turn of a card. Many big players became addicted to this thrill, became junkies who lived for those moments when they could bet the big money. Some big players become casino legends, depending on how much money they're willing to risk and how far they were willing to go.